Good morning, everybody. This is David Walker. This is the seventh in this series of webinars. And this morning we have Vanda North with us, who will talk about the experiment phase. Over to Vanda.
Thank you so much, David. It's a real pleasure to talk about experiment. And I don't know if you can see me at the moment. I can't see myself or the screen, but hopefully behind me, you have got that wonderful journey that we are all on at the moment, the change journey. And so the first experiment that I did was to try to work out how to put that up behind me. So I'm quite proud of that. That is, if you can see this. And what you will see if I slide to the left is this journey that we've done over the last few days, starting off with shock with Zarina, who gave us the perfect, I've just had a little information that the speaker isn't working. Can you hear me, David?
I can.
Okay, I will continue then.
Yeah, carry on.
Can you see the slide behind me?
I can.
Excellent. Okay, so we began with Zarina, who gave us the marvelous flip-top brain with shock when we hit shock. And then we went on to Kathy, who gave us hints and tips for managing denial. We then carried on down the slope and we went through the different stages through frustration. And poor James, who was doing frustration, had 4 glitches with technology as he was trying to do his. So that was a wonderful example, not that we had planned it, of frustration. And then we got to the very bottom of the dip where we had depression. But now we're starting slide to the right, up on the other side. And so we had acceptance with Simon. And now we're getting to experimentation. And so, David, if you can do the first slide, please, that would be fantastic. Lovely. And so what we have to see here is the slide that we have just gone through of all of the different stages. And are you now seeing the slide with the zigzag on it? David? Everything's gone very quiet. Could we see the slide with the zigzag? Because what happens next, and as I've been speaking to a lot of people, is that you are starting to bounce around. And in fact, James said it, that he was in frustration, that would bounce him back over to experimentation. Experimentation would then bounce back sometimes if it didn't work to frustration. And so lots of us, as I've been speaking with people these last week or so, are doing this bouncing up and down, sideways, backwards and forwards, just trying to go, how do I work this out? What do I do? What do I do next? And so here we are. Rather interestingly, the most recent statistics on our poll showed that around 40% have now got to the experiment stage. So if we can look at the next slide, please, David. And what we're looking at here is experiment. And first of all, I just wanted to say, experiment to me sounds a bit serious. And so what I would rather suggest that we look at is maybe play, try something, give it a go. The action habit that both Simon and Kathy spoke about. Let's just try something a little bit differently and see what we can do. And so the very first thing after deciding we'd lighten up a little bit on our experiment is to decide what is the purpose. And again, several of my colleagues had spoken about how important the purpose is for where we are going and what we're going to do. And even with experimentation, I love this beautiful quote from Alice and the Cheshire Cat. And the thing about it is that you could have a specific purpose, that's fine. Maybe you want to experiment like James was with how do we work out balancing the family? I speak with so many of you with little ones, trying to manage working and family at the same time. Or it can be experiment with a general open purpose. Just what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Let me just see what happens when. And so it is literally playing, trying, having a go, nothing so serious. And so I've got 3 little activities for you that you can do to help you explore, excuse me, the experimenting and the building of your resilience. Because at this stage, our resilience is starting to come back, but we need to bolster it a little bit. So the first is a map, and I've called it the Experimental Resilience Map. Now, you can do this for yourself and either put the steering wheel, I call it, of deciding the specific topic, how to manage your family better, how to manage your work better, how to manage yourself better. Then you can run this off very easily, and we'll pop it up on the network website so that you can easily get a hold of it, run it off, and have your family members fill it in. What experiments might they like to do? Talk together, play together. Just decide, oh, what could we do? Let's do something really crazy and really fun. We need to keep ourselves light as we go through this curve backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. We need to look at understanding that most people are juggling work, home, self, fears, family, and work needs to say, how can we adjust to this? And we need to come up with suggestions. We need to say, look, how about we try this? Let's try it. Let's try it for a few days. Let's see what happens. So the map is there for you to take, to try, to use, and hopefully will help you well. Now, that leads us on to the basic Mindshi 8 routine. And this, again, you can get a lot more information. But from an experimentation point of view, this will give you the strength and the resilience to keep trying to do some different things. And it's a very, very simple process. I'll just give you a very quick overview. If you think of it like a circle divided into 4, there are 4 sections. Each piece has 2 parts. The very first part, which is called start, which is a bit of a giveaway, gives you a breath, the square belly breath, which is a very powerful breath for gaining control. And if you want to experiment with gaining control, doing that square belly breath where you breathe in for, say, 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, out for 3 seconds, and stay empty for 3 seconds, and then repeat, that is a way of gaining control. So just experiment with that, see how that works. And then the second part is where you try to focus your mind on 1. You must give your mind something to focus on. So if you give it 1, and see if for a whole minute you can keep your mind on 1. Now, most of us will find all kinds of different thoughts come popping in, and every answer that you get is fine. It's just an awareness. It's just saying, this is how my brain is at the moment. And you can then decide, should I get on with that very complex form right now? Or should I maybe go play with the children for 5 minutes and then come back, and maybe I'll be able to focus better. So that's the first 2 steps of the 8-step routine. The next 2 steps go into the past, and you look at how could you have improved your actions, thoughts, and behaviors over the last 24 hours, just from the point of view of learning the lessons. And then also in those 2 minutes, the second minute is your successes, really applauding yourself and going, yes, I did well here and I did a good job there. Now, the most important one is the 3rd quarter, which is now. And I'm going to put that on hold for a minute because I'm going to come back to that and actually share that with you with a bit more detail. To think, I probably know what I have to do, but how do I want to be? What is my being state? Do I want to be focused, frivolous, playful? What do I want to be in that time? And the final minute is gratitude. And so there's a lot of research now that says that being grateful, even for 1 minute a day, means that you're kind of thinking about it during the day. So when somebody makes a cup of tea for you, when you see a flower that has just opened, When your favorite little robin comes to say good morning, then you capture those and put them in your bag. So when you have your minute, you can remember them easily. So that's the 8 minutes. There's lots more information on the Changemaker web. And so I hope that will help you well, which leads us to the step I skipped, which is so important. It's based on cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's for you to experiment with how you can control yourself in the now. Now, there's a challenge for you, and it is easy. Well, at least I think I've made it easy. So if you take your hand, and if we've got children watching, have them do this as well, and put your thumb with the first finger, and that's for you to think about your B body. We are checking your beat. We are seeing what your beat is like and then controlling it. B for body. And what I do is I do like a little quick x-ray scan right the way through me. And I think, oh, shoulders are a little bit tight, this, that. And so then in the check and choose, I can choose to take care of that, wiggle myself, stand up for a while, do something different. E is for emotion. Touch the middle finger. Check in and say, what emotional room am I in? And I think of it as a long corridor with all the negative emotions on one side, and on the other side, all the positive emotions. And so if I find I've slipped into the frustrated room or the grumpy room, where then I think, is this serving me best at the moment? And the answer is probably no. So in my mind, I stand up, I look at the corridor on the other side, and I think, what would be the best way for me to be right now? And then I choose that emotion. Actions, all of these obviously tie together just like that, but actions is, am I only using the right amount of energy I need for what I have to do? So somebody sending an email when they're happy, somebody sending an email when they're not. See how much more energy. So we only want to use the energy necessary. And the final one, your little finger, T for thoughts, that voice that's chit-chatting away inside your head. Is it helping you or is it undermining you? And a lot of us have the undermining voice. It just constantly is going, oh, you messed that up. Oh, you didn't do that right. Oh, gosh, look at you. What a stupid person. Is that helpful? No. So experiment with talking to, listening to, and encouraging, just like you would your small children. Just say, come along, self. We can do this again. We can do a good job. We can make this work. So you can see that in literally seconds, you can check your body, emotions, actions, and thoughts, change them as you need to, and then you are in control of you. So I challenge you. There's an experiment for you to do, and let me know how it goes, because we would love to know. And now we just come on to some other things along, again, to emphasize the play and exploring nature of experiment. So the first is imagination. Oh, dust those imaginations off if they've just got tucked away a little bit. If you have a child, talk to them, let them share their stories. Just talking about the other age spectrum, lovely story. I have an 85-year young friend, and I phoned him to see how he was doing, and he said, I've just got back from walking on the beach. I'm in Tahiti. The weather is perfect. You should see my shorts that I have on. I've got the wildest design. And he had decided that he would plan completely a holiday, where he was going to stay, what he was going to wear. And each day he would wake up and imagine he was looking out of the window, and off he would go on his imaginary holiday. Fantastic, 85 years young. And then, as Zarina mentioned, with depression, your senses, play with them, maybe with your family or your group. Just decide, right, today we're really going to focus on the touch of things, and just really heighten that sense and play with it. And the other sense, of course, which is so important, is your sense of humor. And so, first of all, there's some very kind of loose statistics, but the point is that children say laugh around 300 to 600 times per day. adults, it's very frequently less than 10. That is, if you're not in the change maker group and having chit chats like we always do. So it's so important to laugh. It's so important to find the funny things in all the rest of everything that's going on. At the moment, one of the things that causes me quite a giggle is my experiment with hair by Rona, because this is now an 8-week past being cut hairstyle thanks to the corona virus. So I call it my hair by Rona, and that's my experiment. But here's some fun and silly things you could do. Maybe try using your non-dominant hand and foot. So scrub your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Do your hair with your non-dominant hand. Ooh, here's a good one for you. Put your trousers or your pants or your shorts on with the other foot first. And here's a real one. If this doesn't tie you in knots as an experiment, put your shirt and your jacket on with the opposite arm first. Ha! Let me see, that one I think will keep you quite amused for quite a while. One of the fascinating things is when we do novel things, when we do different things, when we experiment, we tend to be using more our right cortex. Normal life, normal school is more dominant left cortex based. And so when we get into the novel, when we experiment, when we try new things, we are over here in the right cortex. And this is when we often make all kinds of different connections and associations. So there's so much to be gained. And finally, let me wrap up with my top tips. First of all, is to know where you want to go with your experiments. And remember, that could be a specific focus, or it can be just general play. And involve your family. Please, if you've got little ones, you would be amazed at the wisdom when you ask them, what should we do? Absolute magic. Remember and love yourself as you slide up and down the curve, backwards and forwards with the curve, in every direction on the curve. It's just what we're all doing. And you'll need a whole bunch of different resilience strategies, coping strategies, things to do, so that when you are different places, you've got different ways to shore you back up again. Involve others with your experiments, as much as you're able, of course, and so allow for the legal distancing and all the rest of that, but we can get together in all sorts of different ways. And boy, we are experimenting, aren't we? The number of people that are now getting into all kinds of different areas because of the coronavirus. And then finally, number 4, use all your senses, including your sense of humor. That is just so, so important. And so those are really my top tips and some thinking about how to deal with the experiment stage of the curve. I don't know, David, if we have questions or comments or thoughts.
We do. Let me go back to this slide because I think this is relevant. Nikki Carew asks, do you have to do all of these steps at one time, or can you stagger them through the day?
Sorry.
It's related, so I'll give you the rest of the question. And if you suggest doing them together, is there a best time? Zarina followed that up with a similar vein, which is, can we use this cycle more than once a day?
Now, are you referring to the 8 steps of Mind Chi, or are you referring to the 8 steps? Right. Yeah. Thank you for those questions. And if you can do the 8 steps at the same time each day, it just makes it that much easier, and the brain knows what to expect, and it slips into it just a little bit more easily and more powerfully. As you wake up is a beautiful time to do it. The birds are singing so gorgeously at this time. So maybe just give yourself 8 minutes and run through the steps before you leap out of the day and start the day. The other is as you're ending your day, either with a glass of wine or a nice cup of tea, or as you're about to fall asleep. It's a fabulous thing to do just at that point. My favorite, if I have the flexibility, is to do it at lunchtime, because there's normally a little bit of a dip there anyway, for me anyway. And so if I can just eat a little bit and then take 20 minutes, 10 for my mind chi and 10 just to do nothing, I absolutely adore that, and it works very well. So a regular time does help the brain know what it's doing and increase the power of the 8 steps. And as far as doing all 8, pull out the breath and use the breath whenever you need to, because you just have had an anxious moment, and pull out the beat that I shared with you, because again, you can do that over and over as you need. But once a day, if you possibly can, do the whole 8 steps as a unit. There's a power and a flow that happens when you do it all together. And to those parents, many of whom I've spoken with over the last few weeks, who have little ones, particularly try this out on them, because they are so good at pushing your buttons. They know exactly where your buttons are. And so the next time one of them does that and expects the usual response, just look at them lovingly and say, just a minute, and do your square belly breath, or check your beat. And you will just see their little faces go, what's going on here? My usual routine isn't working. And you can experiment with seeing what it's like to get back control for just a little while. So I got a bit carried away as usual. Did I answer the questions?
I think you did. There is another question, which I think you half answered with there, from Simon Phillips, is what do people do to make this a habit?
Yes. You know, I've spent so long looking at how hard it is to make a new habit. And it is hard. And I think Simon mentioned it, and the Queen mentioned it at the very beginning, of small steps, small steps. So if for the first day you just say, right, I am going only to do the breath, and little step, do the breath, then maybe the next day try doing the breath and the focusing. I find I use little sticky notes. And so I will frequently put a sticky note somewhere that I know that when I go to that place, oh, it will remind me. I find also reminding myself in my calendar, so all my various buzzers, beepers, and boopers go off and go, you're supposed to be doing this. That helps to trigger and make me want to do. And then I think the other thing is to reward yourself. You know, when you've done 1 or 2 of those little steps, is to really give yourself a pat on the back and say, yes, I did that. I've done step 1 and 2. Now maybe I could do 3 and 4. The biggest thing I think is when people start to do this, the 8-step mind chi, is that they begin to see the rewards. I have so many people recently who are telling me, I'm having a real job sleeping. I'm worried, I'm fraught, I'm anxious. And so I teach them the 8 steps, and many of them try to do it just as they're going to sleep. And they then contact me unhappy because they say, well, I did step 1, the breath. I did step 2, the focus. And then I fell asleep. I couldn't get through the others. And I go, yes, wonderful, perfect. You fell asleep. And if you do wake up because you have to visit the bathroom or something, then come back and start with step 1 again and step 2, and hopefully you'll fall asleep again. And then you finish it off in the morning if you haven't been able to get all the way through. So it's small steps. It's beginning the action habit. It's involving others with you. Mind chi is fabulous to do with your children, with your family members, to do it online with your team. Lots of different ways where you can with, and you just check in with each other and say, hey, you done it? Oh, okay, I've done it, etc.
Great, thank you, Vanda. There are no further questions. Oh, yes, there is. There is a question coming in. You see how live this is. Question from Simon. What's the best way of dealing with setbacks during the experiment stage of the curve?
Lovely one. And I think we will have setbacks. And that's why I really wanted to emphasize the sliding backwards and forwards. And it is to love yourself, to accept yourself, to acknowledge that that is a real and proper place to be, because it is difficult, it is tough, and it is requiring an enormous amount of courage and strength and tenacity and buoyancy that we need to have. And so when that does get a little dented, I have a lovely slide I show, which is a tennis ball all nice and round, and then it's coming down and it hits the ground. And when it hits the ground, it gets all squashed. And then that's how we are. And to acknowledge, right now I'm feeling depressed. But the really important thing about being resilient, which is a part of the experiment stage, is to know that it's okay to be depressed at the moment, and I won't always be depressed. And I will learn from this. I will gather strength. I will build my resilience, and I will, like the ball, bounce round and become beautifully round once more. So I think it is acknowledge, appreciate yourself, and know that you're building your strength. You'll find a way out. Call a friend, you know, what is it when you need an answer? Call a friend that always buoys you up and say, okay, talk to me for a little while. I just need to hear you. Just some ways to help yourself, but acknowledge and allow. That is a real part of what we're all going through.
Right. There are no further questions, Vanda. There's lots of lovely comments and you can read those after. So would you like to wrap up?
Yes, I would like to say, please experiment, have fun, play, gather people around, chat about what can we do, how can we build our resilience, how can we get ourselves to be better and stronger. We will come out of this. It will be a new world, and we will all be far better off, maybe not financially, but stronger inside of us. We will all be far better off when we come out of this. But keeping open, keeping experimenting is extremely important. Please contact me if you have any questions, any issues, and if there's any way any of us can help you, we would love to do so. Thanks so much. And thanks to David for all the technological assistance today as well. Thank you, and for your questions. Bye.
Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Vanda. This afternoon at 3 p.m. British Summer Time, Simon and Zarina will be talking about the last phase on the curve, which is new normal. And then on Friday morning at just after 11 a.m. British Summer Time, Kathy and I will be talking about the whole series and bringing it to a close. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you later.
Thanks.